October is a great month to start a fall vegetable garden in Florida. The days are getting shorter, the sun is a little less intense, and it's actually finally starting to cool off. Mornings are usually cooler, and evenings even get a little bit chilly in October. Usually, in the beginning of October, it's still pretty hot during the day, and by the end of October, we usually get a cold snap or two. But this is the weather that the cool season crops love, so it's a great time to start planting your cool season crops outdoors. Here are some cool season crops that are recommended for planting in October by the University of Florida. All of these should be easy to transplant, so you can either buy seedlings from your local garden center or you could start seeds yourself indoors a few weeks ahead of time and then plant them outside in October after about 4 to 6 weeks of growing indoors. That's what I usually do. I like to start my seeds indoors in September and then I transplant outside in October. Some of these can also be grown from directly seeding into the soil outside, but you should look up the soil temperatures first and make sure that the soil isn't too hot to direct sow cool season crops into, because if it's still too hot, the seeds could just get cooked out there and they may not germinate. I have successfully started collards and kale outside in October from seed, so I know it can be done. You could always experiment and just put a few seeds out in the beginning of October and see if they germinate, and if not, you can wait a couple of weeks and try a few more. Maybe start some indoors, some outdoors. I like to experiment, so I've tried different things. So these are easy to transplant: arugula, beets, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, Chinese cabbages, collards, endive, kale, kohlrabi, lettuce, strawberry, and Swiss chard. So here are a few more cool season crops that are recommended for planting in October. Carrots, mustard, and spinach can be either transplanted carefully or you could direct seed them as well. And onions, shallot, radish, and turnips are recommended to just be direct seeded. In case you're wondering, the pictures at the bottom are not any of those things. I didn't have any good pictures of my carrots, mustard, or spinach, and I don't grow onions, radish, or turnips. So I just used some other pictures I have from my cool season garden. The bottom left is red veined sorrel and tango lettuce, and the bottom right is something called tatsoi. It's an Asian green. It's kind of similar to like a baby bok choy. It grows really easily and it's pretty mild, and I use it kind of like spinach. I like it. A couple other things that I want to mention about October is, for one thing, October is the beginning of our dry season in Florida. So we're not going to be getting those daily rains like we get during the summer. And it's best to have a backup plan for how you're going to water your garden when it's dry for days and weeks at a time. You can either plan to hand water, or you could set up a drip irrigation system or another type of sprinkler system just to supplement rain when it's dry. I use a drip irrigation system and I like that pretty well, although it can be a bit of maintenance sometimes and it might be a little bit much to set up depending on the size of your garden. Something else a lot of people use is soaker hoses. I haven't tried those yet, but I'm thinking about it. It seems easier than a drip irrigation system. And then, of course, there's just the regular sprinklers that you can buy as well. But just be mindful that you need to check on your garden and make sure that it is getting enough water when it hasn't been raining. We do still get rain in October sometimes, and they're usually the rain is followed by a cold front in October, but it's just not regular, consistent, reliable rain. So that's one thing to be mindful of. And another thing is just that it's still very hot during the day in early October. The sun is still really intense. And when I plant outside in October, I use shade cloth over my transplants and my direct sown crops, just because that sun is still pretty brutal, and cool season crops will get wilted and bitter when it's too hot outside. So shade cloth is always a good idea. Or you could try just planting in partial sun, preferably where your garden is getting morning and late afternoon sun, but not that intense midday sun, at least not until it gets significantly cooler outside, like late November and December. So just a few thoughts about October. And I guess that's it. Happy gardening.